Hello, everybody, and welcome to our day early comic review video. I'm Jason.
I'm Andy.
And we're with infinityfluxcomics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where every single Monday after the comics have arrived and our team is done bagging and boarding them, Andy and I divide them up. We read through the ones we've most been anticipating, the one we think that most people want to hear about, and we do what we call our spoiler light reviews on them. So we're going to tell you, first appearances, major collectability reasons, but more than that, really what's more important and near and dear to us is we're going to tell you what these comics are really about, the art style, more of the premise, especially for issue number ones, so that when you go in your store, whatever day of the week you go in, and you see the 30 to 40 new comics that are out every week, we have armed you with the knowledge to know which ones you want the most. So as you can see, we got 6 comics in front of us. These are the ones we're going to start with, but we have many more off to the side. We're going to show their variants. We're going to show their incentives. I think all in all, we're going to show 22 comics today out of the numerous ones that are coming out. And then at the end, we list off all the other ones. But before we get started, I want to plug our website at infinityflux.net, where you can actually buy these comics, the ones we're going over, or you can look at the comics that are available to order this week. You can just click on one, you can subscribe to the series, or you can just get just the one cover that you want. So again, that's at infinityflux.net. And yeah, I am told by the online department that the ones that are not already called for by our many customers, you'll be able to buy as of today. So really cool. Glad to announce that. All right, so what's our first one, Andy?
Our first one is this one, which I feel like a lot of people have questions about. This is DC Universe Lazarus Planet Revenge of the Gods. So you're saying, I thought Lazarus Planet was over. This is kind of funny because this deals with some of the fallout of Lazarus Planet, but I don't feel like if you were reading Lazarus Planet, you're like, oh no, I'm missing something. I would say this is great if you are a big Wonder Woman fan, if you had been reading the Yara Flor stuff, all of that. I feel like that's where this kind of takes the story. So in it, the gods, not just of Olympus, but of every kind of pantheon.
All the multiverse of gods.
Have basically been like, hey, these superheroes are starting to really kind of get into our territory of being, like the saviors and the deities that people really look up to. And as the petty gods often are, they are not happy about this, and they've decided we're gonna go back to Earth and we're gonna make everybody look to us instead. But they choose to do it with fear, which, I mean, you've got someone like Wonder Woman. She's not okay with this.
Yeah,
so.
No, she's not taking that.
What is interesting about this, you do kind of get, I don't say new interpretations of the gods, but they definitely do have kind of an updated look, which is pretty cool. I feel like as they are going against superheroes, they like to get like a little bit more superhero looks to them. Like Hermes kind of looks like, Jay Garrick. He's got the helmet on and everything. But no, this is cool. So now it's up to Wonder Woman, Yara Flor, and Cheetah to stop this, because that's kind of Wonder Woman's, her thing is, the Olympian gods. She's going to go there and confront them. But when she gets there, she does not find Zeus on the throne, but someone else who seems to be kind of spearheading this pantheon movement that's going on. So I thought this was really fun. This is written by G. Willow Wilson. The art is by Clayton Henry, who I really like. His art is very clean, but dynamic, a lot of fun. The other things that are in this, there's a backup story that deals with Nubia and Themyscira and what happens when two teenagers stumble upon the shore of Themyscira. How well does that go over? Not too well. And the other thing is Wonder Woman goes through kind of a transformation in this. You'll have to read to find out. I feel like we're going to learn more about what just happened in the next issue. But this is going to be a miniseries. I believe it's a 5 or 6 issue miniseries. Right. It's just a small thing.
And Yara Flor is in this?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, she's in it. It's kind of a very like Wonder Woman family-centric story. So as much as it says Lazarus Planet, I would almost more recommend this to people who have been enjoying Wonder Woman or want a Wonder Woman story to read that feels very kind of classic Wonder Woman.
I think at least going on, I've seen Shazam on some of the covers.
That's the funny thing. Like, he's on this cover, he's on some of the other stuff, I believe only Billy Batson shows up in maybe a panel in this. I think he's going to be bigger going forward, but at least for this one, this is pretty Wonder Woman heavy.
Okay.
So we'll see. I can't say, oh yeah, it's just a Shazam book yet, but we'll see going forward with the future issues. But I very much enjoyed it. The art, like I said, is great. We've got this great Gilliam March cover. We also have another thing alluding to more of the Shazam family going to be in it. This is the Simon DeMeo variant with Mary and Shazam on it. So I'm guessing we're going to get more of them in upcoming issues.
The Shazamily.
The Shazamily.
Okay, so my first one is Hellcat #1. This is a 5-issue miniseries by Christopher Cantwell. The artist is Alex Linz. Alex Linz has a good time doing the art in this because Patsy Walker has such a long history. You mentioned that while I was reading that, Andy.
Yeah.
She goes back to sort of like golden age romantic comics. And so this does go into that territory. Her past comes up, and Linz changes his comic style to match different eras. It has sort of updated coloring, though.
Yeah.
So I thought the art was really cool that they're doing that with this character with such a rich history. So Cantwell had previously been writing Hellcat in the past Iron Man series, which ended a few months ago, where she was a major part of that series. In fact, I joked it should have been called Iron Man and Hellcat.
Yeah.
So you can tell he has a lot of care for this character. Cantwell is one of these people, he draws from a lot of comic history. So I'm going to tell you, this is a satisfying read, but you've got to hang in there. Like, I got halfway through and I'm like, man, this is like a little disjointed, but it all comes together by the end. Just trust that. Cantwell is a good enough writer. I stuck it out and I was like, okay, cool. Because some of this is from Patsy Walker's past. Some of it you have to see her in her teenage years with her old frenemy. What's her name? Helly or Helga? Hetty, Hetty, her friend, because that's a part of it too. But then there's stuff that has happened lately where Patsy Walker has been dating, this is in sort of present time of the comic, a past boyfriend of, I just said Hetty. Yeah. And this individual has ended up dead. And I mean, it's so jarring and they so get away from it. You're like, what has happened here? I mean, it's a gruesome death. Well, it seems Patsy Walker is also missing some time in her head. And so she decides that this had to happen when she was sort of unconscious. She doesn't know if she had something to do with this murder or not. So she goes to Rick Sheridan. That's right, Sleepwalker, for you people who are around my age and have a reverence in 90s comics. Sleepwalker is in this. In fact, I guess the first in this, if there's a first appearance, there's a first appearance of a council of sleepwalkers. I'd never seen it before. I looked around, poked around online, hadn't heard about it. Now, I will say Sleepwalker went a lot longer than I stayed on it back then. I didn't have the funds to buy it all back then. So maybe this council was in a later one, but it's the first time I've seen them. So anyhow, this is a comic about missing memories, Patsy Walker's past, her relationships and friendships, and also Sleepwalker Rick Sheridan. So good first issue. There's definitely a climax at the end that pulls it all together. And I guess that's pretty much my review of Hellcat. Issue #1 of 5. We've got some very cool variants for it. The first one, Peach Momoko. You viewers know she never does Marvel variants. So real uncommon there, but still a very cool variant. Here is the Scotty Young variant.
Taking the cat part very literally.
Yeah. And then we have a 1 in 25 Stegman variant. We're selling for $30 while it lasts.
I think Hellcat is super important, and I'm glad they're giving the spotlight because she's the character who's kind of crossed over from what Marvel was to what they became. And she's almost like you know how Galactus was in the universe before and he's like the survivor of the new thing. It's like she kind of is that. She's the survivor from the romance comic era.
She has a rich past, and she is the second cat. She took the cat's outfit and became Hellcat. But that whole story is great. If you haven't read it, look it up.
Yeah. So next up, I have Yoda, Star Wars Yoda, number 5. Now, this is not the beginning of a new story arc. This is actually the second part of the second story in this Yoda maxi series. But I just have to talk about it up front because this is definitely my favorite of the first 2 stories we had. But also, I just think this is a great kind of standalone Star Wars tale that explores a lot of kind of what makes reading about Jedi and everything a lot of fun. So we learned in the last issue that it seems like this is taking place. It's pre-episode 1. Count Dooku he's not Count Dooku right now. He seems like he's still part of the Jedi Order. And they have teamed up to kind of investigate why there's some darkness within this new recruit of younglings. And you learn a lot about the younglings, that there is a Wookiee youngling and a Trandoshan youngling, which is like what Bosk is, and they've had this history of them hunting the Wookiees, but Yoda kind of comes to them and is like, no, in the Jedi Temple, we're all friends. Like, or you don't have to be friends, but you have to have mutual respect for them. And it's a lot about kind of like the Jedi teaching, but this Wookiee who's having visions about this other Jedi attacking him does the thing you shouldn't do and actually goes to Dooku for advice. And he doesn't have very good advice for, let's say it's not very pacifist vibes that he gives off. But I love this series. I believe each of these stories is going to be like 3 to 4 issues. I think this probably has about 1 more in it. But I highly recommend this. Even if you can't get the first issue, you can start with issue 4. I think 4, 5, and 6 are going to be a really great one. And perfect for those who watch Tales of the Jedi, the miniseries on Disney Plus that explored the young Dooku story. You get a lot more of that in here. So I really like this. We've got some variants for it. We have the Lopez variant. You get a lot of that really good Yoda sage wisdom in this that makes you think about things a little deeper. We also have a Peach Momoko variant with gear. It's one of your Jedi in this. I also want to mention that we have issue number 3 of Star Wars High Republic Adventures that is out this week as well.
Okay, so I read one of the few DC books out this week, a little bit of a small week for DC. It is Multiversity Harley Screws Up the DCU #1. So this is a new 6-issue miniseries written by Frank Thierry with art by Logan Farber. And what I would say about the art style in this, it leans a little bit more comical, but it's not like complete comic.
Not Looney Tunes.
No, it's not. It reminds me a little bit more of her animated show.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say as far as the art style, which fits the mood and tone of this really well. So the premise is that Harley has gone back to Coney Island to go visit her old pals, the gang of Harleys that she set up to kind of take over and make sure things are safe while she was away. And when she gets back, there's a letter for her that she's inherited something from someone she's never met, somebody named Professor Incredulous, who was a stage magician. So she doesn't know this person, but she goes to the warehouse, and lo and behold, it's a time machine. This is not a spoiler. This is mostly in the solicitation. So, of course, Harley's going to use the time machine. She goes to use the time machine and ends up in a time period where everybody is being controlled by Starro, which I like anytime Starro comes into something, you know. There's always that choice of what do you do when all your friends start trying to attack you? How hard do you beat them up? Harley tries to be nice, but when something bad happens to her, she starts beating up people pretty badly. What I would say is Harley figures out in a way, you'll have to read, that she is the one that caused this to happen. She has messed up the DC universe. She did a series of things that made it where a lot of the superheroes never got their powers, and it's up to her to fix it, her version of this in time. I will also say that this is it has a minor first appearance in the way that there is a new version of Harley in a new outfit. So if you're a collector, you want all the different kind of like Harley versions and Harley outfits, there is a new one in this that I think is pretty noteworthy. And so that is what's going on. And issue number 1 of Harley screws up the DCU, number 1 of 6. Here is our variants. Here is the Farber variant. So he is your interior artist. This is definitely what the interiors look like. And then we have the 1 in 25 Rossimo variant that we're selling to our customers for $20.
Next up, I have a pretty interesting one. This is, as you can tell, magazine-sized. This is The Forged from Image Comics. This is by Greg Rucka, Eric Troutman, and the art is done by Mike Henderson, which I like Mike Henderson a lot. I was a big fan of the series Nailbiter that he did for Image, the horror title Nailbiter, and great to see him on something new. So at first I thought this was just a one-shot. It always feels like when we get these magazine size, they're like one-shot things. This is actually going to be a mini-series. I'm not sure how many issues, but more than telling you like beat by beat the story of this, I'll tell you more what it is, like who it would appeal to. So they describe it as kind of a Conan-esque sci-fi story. And I'd say that is pretty close to the feeling I got. I would say almost closer to the old Marvel Savage Sword of Conan. This is definitely a mature title for all the reasons books get mature titles. But it kind of has that like journey feel of an old Savage Sword. You know, we've got this mission that we're going on. It's got, I would say, elements of, I don't know, the ships and stuff are kind of the like, not sleek, they're very like heavy and sluggishly move through space. And then we have a team of women who drive mechs, and we don't see too much of it in here, but they're supposedly kind of bug squashers. And I think that's like a kind of alien they go after in their mechs. But this also includes space witches. This includes, like we will see coming up, some very ugly aliens that they're going to be going after. Even on the cover, it says, a team of ultra-lethal Imperial vixens, a cabal of sensuous space witches, and a bug stomp on a distant hell world. So you can kind of get that like Savage Sword meets sci-fi feel in this. The art is great. I really like this, but definitely not for young readers. But a thing that I feel like not a lot of people knew was coming out. So if that sounds like your speed, definitely check it out.
Yeah, and Greg Rucka is a great writer. He did The Old Guard.
Yeah.
And when a writer writes up that, little readout you did, I'm
Yeah.
sure he handed that to the artist. He's like, here you go. The artist's just like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's got some
that's
really
what I
cool
need.
coloring in it, too. I feel like a lot of sci-fi books live or die on the coloring. It can either be muddy, or this leans more into kind of the like ethereal space, very glowing and very interesting.
Okay, so it is finally here. The last issue of BRZRKR, issue number 12. This, of course, is the series co-written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kent, with art by Ron Garney. This last issue is really cool because it is a double-sized issue, and actually it was one of my favorite issues of the series. I think this series began with a really good issue and ended with a really good issue. That is kind of my favorite parts of it. As of last issue, B had just lost his immortality. That's what he had been trying to do in a way. He's figure out how he's immortal and can't die. He's lived way too long. But just as he lost it, some power-hungry jerk gained it. Luckily for B, he still knows how to fight. He's had a lot of experience. So that's kind of the first half kind of settles what has been going on. And I can see why they wanted it to be a double issue, because the second half is even more interesting. I can't reveal too much because if you've been reading this, there's too much payoff. But what I will say is that B and his psychiatrist, who he's gotten very, very close to, they get about as close as two humans can get in almost every way. You'll have to read it. This is definitely high concept stuff coming into the end of this. And there's a lot of passage of time. Something happens where a lot of time passes, new characters are introduced, time passes. You will get to finally see what becomes of B. Will he finally find his death or not? check it out yourself. But what I will say is this becomes a very elevated story at the end, and it turns out a lot of it is all about what possibly can make us immortal. And I mean the reader, everyone. What can make us within humanity immortal? I mean, it ends with like excerpt from like a poem. You know, it's that sort of thing. So really satisfying ending. A few other things I need to add in is, for one, you know, this is optioned by Netflix. I think they're making like an animated show and a movie from it, and that was re-solidified several months ago. And it was announced at Comics Pro recently that there's going to be more of it. And I looked into it. It's going to be some one shots. I don't know if they're doing another full series, but they're going to keep BRZRKR out there. So I'm happy to say a good ending for this very violent, trippy, often gory comic.
They stuck the landing, though.
Yeah, the landing was one of my favorite parts, to tell you the truth. And so here are the variants. We have the Tint variant.
He finally got to do a cover after writing the whole thing.
And they did a foil of it. So, shiny. And then we have the Grandpa variant, which also has the other foil. They've done that pretty much the entire run. Or actually, this is a foil of the
A cover.
The A cover, yes. Sorry about that. And then they got Opena to do one. Jeremy Opena is quite a great artist. Then a lot of incentives. So here's the 1 in 10 Malieve incentive. We're selling for $10. Here is the 1 in 75 sketch of that. We're selling for $25. Here is the 1 in 50 Boss Logic that we are selling for $35. Here is the 1 in 100 version of that we're selling for $50. And lastly, typically they do a 1 per store, but on this one, they did it where if you ordered enough, you could order up to 5 of a particular cover. So this is the 5 per store Opena sketch variant we're selling for $40.
And thus ends the saga, at least for now, of BRZRKR.
Over a year of it coming out, broke all kinds of records.
Okay, well, next up I have a new maxi series. I believe this is 10 issues, Superman Lost. So this is from Christopher Priest as the writing, and Carlos Pagulayan does the art. And this is interesting. This is I think what it is going to become is kind of a love story between Clark and Lois, but we have to set up why we are going to be exploring that. So in this, it starts with Lois working on a story. She's just talking to Clark. Clark gets called away on a Justice League mission. So you get all the Justice League in here. It's very cool to see. Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Batman. Everything going according to generally how Justice League missions go. And Lois is back at home and she says, I've been working, I'm going to go to sleep. She wakes up, Superman's standing in the middle of the floor with a blank look on his face, only to find out that he says, I've been gone 20 years. And she makes a note, she's like, oh, that felt like this is one of your shorter missions. But something has happened in those 20 years of him being gone that has really detached him from humanity. Something has happened, some kind of, as it says, he was lost out there.
He got a job in the service industry.
Apparently. And what this sounds like, it's going to be a mix of like flashbacks to what was going on during those 20 years. And also, how does he reconnect with Lois and the humanity on Earth after being gone so long? And it's kind of a mystery that's going to be unfolding as it goes along. But this first issue, very cool setup, very cool mystery. You get kind of a hint of maybe what caused this, what happened on that mission that led to this. Very cool. One of the things I always love seeing is Bruce Wayne visiting like Lois and Clark's house, where Lois is basically like, you've got some explaining to do type thing. But I would say this is for it's hard to think what kind of superhero reader this is, even though it's a very like space and like it seems like it's gonna be very fantastical. I would say this feels very grounded and very human. Even all the Justice League and the mission they're going on is a very like grounded mission. So if you're looking for a new, I know we just got a new Superman #1. This is another new kind of alternate take on a Superman story, heavily involving Lois, which I really like. So definitely check this one out if you're interested in reading kind of a Superman story you've never read before. We also got some variants for it. This is the Joe Quesada variant. Now, he does not have this suit in it, but I know we've seen this on a lot of the covers. He's got this kind of white glowing suit that I'm looking forward to finding out about. And I love his cape is making the S with the beam from the sun, making the shape. And that is it for that one.
Okay, so I read the latest Miles Morales issue. Miles Morales, Spider-Man issue #4 by Cody Ziegler and Vincent Federici doing the art. So on the cover here, we have Miles going up against his new foe, Rabble. And this issue is interesting because, you know, they've been building up to this fight. They've shown it on past issue covers, and I've been like, it doesn't happen yet, really. Okay, it happens in this one. They have their full-on fight. But I have to say, Rabble knows the identity of, the real identity of Miles Morales, or of Spider-Man. She knows it's Miles. What's interesting in this is she tells him why she hates him. Okay, she fully explains it to him. I was surprised it came out so early. Like we learned it in a past issue, but he didn't know it. And she also tells him her real name,
Wow.
which makes it very personal, but at the same time is a very bad move. I'm reading it, I'm like, that's real personal, and I could see somebody who's really angry doing that, just sort of out of anger. But it's also kind of a dumb move. Also, I have to say, her reasons for hating Miles are very petty, in my opinion. Doesn't mean it's unrealistic. People can be very petty, but they're very unfair to him. So see what you think when you read this issue. So far, she has Genki and she has Starling. She has kidnapped them, which has caused Miles into this battle. But this issue, by the end of it, she's going after the rest of his family. So that's what's going on in Miles Morales. And I think, yeah, my favorite part of this would be just to discuss with people. What do you think about her reasoning for going after Miles? Because they've really set up a character it's easy to dislike.
Easy to pick sides.
Yeah.
Who's right.
And so here is the Bacalo variant, which I think looks really good. Just the color choice and the simple line work. And then we have our first this week of the Alex Ross Timeless Villain variants. We'll be showing you several more of these this show, so stick around for that.
That one has been all the talk around here about Scorpion's suit, how it actually goes into his mouth. Like his lips are covered with this suit. And it's like, oh
my goodness, you're right.
It's very...
Let's show the camera one more time. Look at those. That mask goes right into the lips.
I don't know how you put that on. You got to like tuck that up in there. I don't know, but it's disturbing. Definitely a villain move.
Here's the 1 in 25 Stegman variant we're selling to our customers for $15. Yes, Stegman's doing a lot of the even more variants over at Marvel lately, which is
I got
great.
one coming up. Okay, next up I have Red Goblin #2. So I think it's interesting about this. This has been kind of the look of Red Goblin since we first met him back in Amazing Spider-Man. It's kind of looked like this. This is not what he looks like in this book. So in this issue, we've had Norman Osborn gets kidnapped by the new Goblin gang that originally followed the Goblins and now have kind of turned on them. Has Norman Osborn tied up. And the suit is going to go to Normie, and he's going to attempt to rescue his grandfather. Now, this, I think, is our first, like, really good, like, in-story look at the new Red Goblin suit when Normie's wearing it. It is very sleek. It's very much like, almost like a runner suit with a very sleek head on it. Very interesting. But, yeah, there's... They declare the group of goblin themed criminals at the end declare themselves the all new, all different kind of Goblin gang. I forgot exactly what they call themselves, but they do refer to themselves as the all new, all different, which is funny. That's a term Marvel's used in the past for their characters. But I thought this was a fun addition. It looks like the next one we're really going to see what this Red Goblin can do when put up against a lot of villains. So, very cool issue of Red Goblin. Feels like we got so many. We got Hallows Eve, we got Red Goblin, we got Gold Goblin. The Spider-Verse is definitely expanding. We also have this, speaking of Ryan Stegman, the Ryan Stegman variant.
Another great one. Okay, so I read the second issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Last Ronin Lost Years. So that first issue took everyone by surprise because it had those little baby turtles from the end of Last Ronin, but they were growing up. They were in their maybe teen years, early teen years, and Cassie was training them, or Casey was training them. So in this issue, there is more of that. It's an A story and a B story. You have the A story with Casey Marie Jones, daughter of Casey Jones, who is training the turtles. One of them breaks a water glass, and I know that doesn't seem like much of a thing, but she takes this as a moment to teach them a lesson. It's like a story from back in the days of her father, Casey Jones, and the turtles, and it all feeds into right and wrong. It's one of those, you learn a big lesson through a very simple thing, very Eastern. But the main story is the B story. So, the A story is kind of short. The B story is more on Michelangelo traveling through Japan. This is not too long after his brother's deaths, and he is trying to cope with that. Meanwhile, he meets another master. He's trying to learn more technique so he can take his vengeance. And so we get to see who he meets and the training he has to go through. So, I mean, if you like Last Ronin, it's just sort of a no-brainer. This is good stuff again. And, of course, it's by Kevin Eastman. It's by Waltz, who writes the main Turtle series, Tom Waltz, with art by S.L. Gallant. And we got some variants to show you. We have the Eastman variant. Now you see that teacher that Michelangelo meets this issue. And we have the BRZRKR variant. And lastly, we have the 1 in 25 Del Mundo variant. We're selling for $20.
And next up for me, we've got HeMan and the Masters of the Universe Masterverse number 2. So I really like the first issue of this, where we have kind of a framing story to tell fun Elseworld stories from the Masterverse. The HeMan universe version of the multiverse, as Zodak and Sorceress are peering into alternate futures, and this time we get another 2 alternate futures, or alternate presents, whatever. With this one, we get a story that is, I feel, very Conan. The Conan time where he was on a ship. He was kind of the pirate Conan. We have that, but with Prince Adam, who has been tasked to go on a mission for his father in the kingdom, seeking the Isle of Grayskull. So he's looking for the Isle of Grayskull. You've got a lot of fun cameos in this, and kind of seeing what's the... it's not super piratey, it's more of that barbarian, high seas adventure, but a very cool story in that one. And then we also have a very noir story that is all in black and white, even kind of has the the shades across the face, and the girl sitting on the table and everything, of a mystery story that's not, it doesn't take place in the 20s or 30s or anything, but definitely has that style of a noir detective story. So I think
HeMan Noir.
Yep, it is very cool. You'll see a hint of what the art style looks like that on one of the variants. But this is by Tim Seeley does the writing. We have Eddie Nunez doing the bookend stories. We have EJ Sue and Victor Santos on it as well. So here is our Nunez. I believe Victor Santos does the bookends, and Nunez does the kind of crime noir story, so you can get a hint of that there. That's what the interior art looks like in that story. Oop. And then we have the Sue variant, where that's your style for the kind of high seas adventure story. So another great addition. I like this, seeing the different versions and different takes on the characters. And I know a lot of people around here picked up the first one and really enjoyed it.
Okay, so check this out. I read this new indie book called No One. This is co-written by Kyle Higgins of Radiant Black and Massiveverse fame, amongst other things. It's co-written by him and Brian Bucalato with art by Geraldo Borges. So the first thing I'm going to tell you, this is a lot of bang for your buck. This is $3.99 and it is a double issue. And I'll tell you, I need to go back and fully read this. Like I'm a pretty fast reader. I've always, scored very high on reading comprehension. And they just put a lot in this in a good way, not in a dull way, not in a boring way, in a world building, character introducing, like the lines were good, the dialogue was good. Some comics you read and you're like, this is too wordy, you need to do a book. This just is a comic with a lot going on. And so I'll tell you what I got from it, even though I really want to just sit down and, it's going to take me like a good hour to really read this thing well. And so it is part of the Massiveverse, but I have to say, I didn't see Radiant Black powers or anything. This is a very human story. It is about a city that has been plagued by a serial killer who is, no longer around, but there are now copycats coming around. And as far as is this serial killer really gone or not, or who were they? That's part of the mystery. That you have the copycats claiming to be that, and then you have this character, No One. He is sort of your crime fighter character. Does he have powers? Does he not? Hard to say. This is more of like a gritty story, realistic world story. Since it's part of the Massiveverse, maybe powers will come into play, but that's not what they're telling here. So it's a lot of meeting the characters, meeting the police, meeting the reporters, but these are not throwaway characters. You can tell they're trying to build a real cast to tell something in. I think this is supposed to be ongoing, or I'm sorry, no, this is a mini series. This is definitely a mini series, but it seems like they have a lot to say in it and a lot of characters they want to go through, and this very interesting serial killer mystery that I really can't do justice to try to tell you why it's good. It's just one of these when you sit down and read it and you're like, oh, they're doing a good job of this thing that is a premise in many indie books over the years. So I was impressed by it. The other thing is, this is one of two books this week that I'll be going over, another one later, that has a QR code that you scan it and you get more. This one they're releasing a monthly podcast with the book that is going to have Rachel Lee Cook and Patton Oswalt being two reporters from this world. Okay, so they're two characters you meet in the book, and they're doing a podcast as if they're in the world, and they're these reporters who are trying to investigate what's going on with the serial killers and with this hero, No One. I tried to listen to it. It's not up yet. It's available as of the 15th on release date of this. But once again, more of the Massiveverse just being really ambitious. Really ambitious. But I have to say the quality of this, the art of this, really, really good. If you like your stuff with less super heroics and more like real world, if there was superheroes, this was probably a good one for you. And at the price point, I mean, they're probably making nothing off this. They really just want everyone to give it a chance for $3.99 for a double-sized book that didn't spare any expense on them writing and drawing it. So here are the variants. We have the Monty's variant. We have the Englert variant, and that's the podcast person, Julia Page. That's her character name in this, but I think she'll be voiced by Rachel Lee Cook. And then here is the 1 in 10 Wayland variant we're selling for $10. I like it when just indie books go that extra mile that you don't see the big two do. Even though I don't think this is going to be a huge sensation, it still gets my extra attaboy.
Yeah, I like Brian Buccellato too. He started out as a colorist with Francis Manapul. He's Francis Manapul's colors for a long time, and then took over writing duties at Flash. So he's got a really good pedigree of some solid storytelling. Okay, next up, I've got our final issue of Secret Invasion. So I've really enjoyed this series, this miniseries from its beginning. It's definitely full of twists and turns, and that does not stop. Even with the final issue, there's still questions when you got Skrulls involved of who is a Skrull and who is not. So your main players in this were Maria Hill and Nick Fury, but even there, we do learn how, of course, the heroes are going to come out on top. But you really start seeing how Maria Hill has orchestrated all of this in their favor. But is this truly the end of this story of these Skrulls now on Earth? I will say that there is kind of the end page, and then some ads and everything, and then there is one more page, and we could have our first appearance of a new Super Skrull. So if you haven't read any of this, I definitely recommend picking this up if you can find all the issues, or wait for the trade, because this was a great mini-series, and I feel like this is just kind of a primer for the new
the Disney
the Secret Invasion TV show that's coming up. I feel like it's going to take a lot from this, and definitely using these characters. And I just have the one cover for this one as well.
Okay, so I read Avengers Forever, issue number 15. So this is kind of the last issue of Avengers Forever. This is sort of the last part to Avengers Assemble. It is part 9, but honestly, it's not. There is an Avengers Assemble Omega, which is part 10, that I have to say, I read this and I feel the story does not quite end. I think the Omega, sometimes Omegas, they're tacking on sort of here's the aftermath.
Yeah.
The Omega feels important enough for me to say this is not really the end of it. So this is by Jason Aaron and Aaron Cooter. This is, so like I said, last issue of Avengers Forever. So that's it for Jason Aaron on Avengers. What a run. So, so much has happened, so much battle, so many multiverse people. What I will say is that you got Mephisto, who has absorbed all of his different forms throughout the multiverse and become this huge, nearly impossible to defeat character, going up against the Avengers from all the different time periods, and at least the ones I've survived to this far. Last issue, or the last part, introduced a new Deathlock. You'll have to see how this is, but this Deathlock is super powerful, and he's helping the Avengers. This issue, a lot of them get a moment. It's like a third page moment of each one yelling Avengers Assemble and doing something cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so just more of the battle. Can they defeat Mephisto or not? You'll have to see if that gets resolved, but there is definitely more that you're going to want in that Omega issue, I will report. And also, Mephisto's ultimate yet fairly simple plan and goal is revealed by the end of this issue too. So that's what's going on in Avengers Assemble issue number 15, or Avengers Forever. And I read that so much in the issue, it got in my head. Here is that awesome Hainsworth variant that he's doing, his variant series with his pixelated characters. And yes, this is a wraparound like the other one. So if you think this is cool, you might want to start collecting them all right now, because they're going to be hard to find in another month or so.
I want to see where he goes with that idea in the future.
And here is the Alex Ross Timeless Villain variant for that issue as well, with Kang on it.
Okay, I've got Justice Society of America, issue number 3. I feel like every issue of this is better than the last, and I've liked them all so far. This one really starts to kind of cement the story, who the villain is. You could probably guess it from the previous issue, but it's kind of all revealed in this one. Now, what I will say about this JSA series by Jeff Johns, we've got Mikhail Janin in this, doing the art for most of it. This is definitely a kind of love letter to the golden age of comics. You could probably guess that, being the JSA. Jeff Johns a lot of his writing has centered around the Silver Age. This one goes back to the Golden Age, and the some of the characters that you got there. We have the return of the character, the Unknown Soldier, which is very cool. A character that you don't see in anything other than like back issue bins too often. We also get like callbacks, like those little like asterisks at the bottom, like see this issue. This goes all the way back to All-Star Comics number 35 and stuff. You're talking about 50s era comics in this, which is very cool. But our kind of main story is a Huntress from the future, the Huntress that's the daughter of Batman and Catwoman, goes to seek help from the Justice Society because that's who kind of she worked with in the future. She knows she can count on them. They do address why she's Huntress, but there was also Helena Bertinelli, Huntress, what the connection is there. But you get some great JSA team up fighting some Bizarros, some Superman Bizarros, so you get some great action in this. But I really just like the setup of really what the bigger story is with this, how she is trying to stop this person who can time travel from destroying them all in the future. It's just great seeing a lot of these characters get revitalized, kind of with a modern twist or how they would kind of act in a modern setting. Very good, very fun issue of Justice Society of America. We get kind of a roll call in this one as well, so you know who the current team is. We've got some variants for this as well. So this is the Yannick Paquette variant with Jay Garrick Flash. And we also have this one that's really cool. This is the Maria Laura International Women's Day variant with all those awesome ladies from the JSA.
Really nice.
Very nice. And you realize how many great characters they have.
All right, so I read Nocterra issue number 12. That's right, this series is back. It was on hiatus for a little while. This is by Scott Snyder with superb art by Tony S. Daniel. I have to say this book has some of the best art in the industry, in my opinion. And that might just be my taste. But
yeah.
So this is really an awesome issue because it's narrated, at least at the beginning, by Emery, who was Val's little brother. He was doing really bad at the beginning of all of this, but now he is leading Sundog Convoy because, as far as he knows, his sister has given her life so that they could continue on. But what we readers know is that Val is not dead. Although she has turned into a shade, she has managed to keep her personality. Well, there is a great reunion in this. And after that, the team is coming up with a new plan to save humanity. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean they'll pull it off, but they have a new objective and a new plan. So another great issue of Nocterra. This is one that if other things you've been reading have dried up or something, maybe go back, get the trade for the early issues. It's just a good book, and it continues to be. So here is the Jay Lee variant.
I could spot that as a Jay Lee from over here. I saw it. I was like, oh, yeah.
And here is the 1 in 25, or I'm sorry, 1 in 10 Edwards Virgin variant for $10.
You know Tony Daniel's a good artist when he has to draw a semi-truck that many times. No artist wants to have to draw a semi-truck that many times. That's just that's rough. He needs to get paid extra for that. Next up is a book I've really been enjoying. I don't hear a ton of people talking about it, but I feel like everyone who's reading it really likes it. This is Wildcats number 5 from the kind of new reintroduction of the Wildcats. And I think they've tried to reintroduce the Wildcats quite a few times in the past to varying levels of success, to just fading away into nothing until they come back again. I feel like this is the strongest revitalization they've had because they've kind of done it as a slow burn. It's not all of the characters from the Wildstorm universe all at once. We've been building each issue a couple of characters and seeing why are they important to the DC universe. So that continues in this one, and the coolest thing happens where you have your 7 Soldiers of Victory, who are kind of the front to look good when the Wildcats are doing all the dirty work. And someone has taken notice of this. Superman comes to have a talk with them. And he has heard claims that Majestic, the leader of the 7 Soldiers of Victory, was a Kryptonian. And he has ways of finding out if that's true. When it turns out that he calls him out on it and says, "You are not a Kryptonian," the fists start flying. And I love it how all the rest of the 7 soldiers go like, "You do that, we are not touching Superman."
Fighting
like,
Superman.
like
Perfect.
you pick this fight. That is great, but that is not the only Superman fight you get in this, because the classic character Spartan makes an appearance too, and you get Spartan versus Superman. So I feel like this comic is giving, if you're a fan of like the 90s Wildstorm, the Jim Lee properties, Wildcats, just that whole era of like Gen 13, all of that.
Jim Lee Image stuff.
You will really like this. The characters are handled in a great way. Just so much fun. So if you haven't tried the new Wildcats, give it a read. You'll surely like it, because I really like it. We've also got this very funny Dan Hip variant, where Grifter has his own bubble gun. It's very cool.
Okay, so I read issue number 5 of I Hate Fairyland. I think this is the end of this arc. That's what it seemed like. This is written by Scotty Young with awesome art by Brett Bean. This issue is great. So this is the second comic this week where it has a QR code. And I'm maybe one of the first people reporting on this. So it has a QR code to take you to a song that was written for this comic. The song is called This World by artist Jack the Radio. And they tell you, listen to the song while you read the comic. So it's pretty cool because when you hear the song, first off, it's a pretty good song. I liked it. I did this. And the first half of the comic's like a music video. It is Gert trying every which way to earn money by defeating big, crazy beasts and bad things in hell so that she can pay her way to get back to Fairyland, which has been her quest for the first bunch of issues. She has to go up against a dragon. She goes up against a Baba Yaga type figure. Other things happen, all set to this music. And this world, I think the chorus is like, "This world is not for you," which is pretty perfect for the way that Gert feels about not just hell, but also Fairyland. Then the second half of the comic comes in, and, you know, for me, the song was pretty much like over. So it was a pretty good timing. And the second half, you'll have to see what happens. Did she finally make it to Fairyland? I will say the first half music video is in, there's no words. Just great art. Second half, there's words, there's stories, and the most I will say is there's also the reappearance of a very major character from the first I Hate Fairyland is finally going to be back. So another great issue. This is just a delightful comic to read and check out. So as long as you're above the age of 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And so variants, here we have the Brett Bean variant, who of course is the interior artist. And we have the Peach Momoko variant. She snuck out of her Marvel office for a little while to do one.
She has an office at every publisher. Okay, next up I have Wolverine issue number 31. So I've been kind of checking in and out of Wolverine for a while, but this story is just really interesting because almost the entire thing is just a Wolverine versus Beast.
Yeah, they've been kind of
Beast. They've
heading that way.
I'm really wondering if they're going to find a way to redeem Beast, because he's done some really just terrible things in the name of doing good. But you know, his scientific brain sometimes doesn't quite have the conscience of a regular good-hearted X-Men. So in the last issue, we thought for a moment that Wolverine had killed Beast. He basically was like, "I'm going to take him out. I hate to do this, and that happened only to find out that Beast secretly had a lab where he was growing more bodies for himself. So this picks up from there. And the biggest thing I did not expect, I never really expect this going into a book, but Beast's headquarters turns into a giant organic mech suit that he walks out in the ocean with. It has a giant skull head and like foliage limbs. Very weird. But
That's really mad scientist.
it is very mad scientist. But also the body of the beast that Wolverine had just killed suddenly gets up and starts fighting him, but this time with some very weird fungal spores, very Last of Us like, and Wolverine has to take him down again. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on this, and it's kind of one of those like, how is Beast gonna go down? Because even at the end of this, it looks like he has some very sinister plans, and I say that in the way of something Mr. Sinister might also try to do. So, very cool issue of Wolverine. If you haven't been reading it, I think these last couple of issues actually are pretty easy jumping on point if you are just familiar with kind of the Krakoa stuff going on. We also have an incentive. This is the 1 in 25 Pete Woods variant that we're selling to our customers for $15.
Okay, I read Captain Marvel issue number 47. This is part 5 of the Revenge of the Brood crossover they're doing with X-Men. This is by Kelly Thompson with art by Sergio Davila. And so last part of this, they split into 2 teams to try to do 2 different objectives in the Brood base that they woke up in. It was sort of a simulation thing. They thought they had won, but secretly hadn't, and now they're trying to find Rogue, and they're trying to defeat the Brood Queen, find Binary. So it got really bad last issue, and it climaxed with Hazmat using her power, which is like basically a nuclear bomb going off.
Yeah.
So this issue is, what is the fallout of that? How has this affected not just foes, but also friends? The other thing that happens in this issue is to save Binary, Carol might have to take her place. And in doing so, might give the Brood the upper hand. What will they do when they kind of have Carol's powers at their disposal? So that's what's going on in this, and it'll continue in the next issue of X-Men. And here is the Lupacino variant. And chained to her desk at Marvel, the Momoko variant. And lastly, here is the Alex Ross Timeless variant with Juggernaut.
The classic team up of Captain Marvel and Juggernaut.
Clearly the brother of Xavier. It's like a spin image of him.
I remember when that reveal was like the biggest thing ever.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy. Okay, next up I have, let me make sure I grab it. This is Hulk number 13. This is the penultimate issue of this run of the Hulk. I'm not sure when that new one starts, if they're starting at a number 1 or if they're continuing the numbering. I know we got the announcement of that that happened just like this last week. But this is the end of the Ryan Ottley story that started off with Donny Cates and Ryan Ottley. So this, we get more into the kind of nuts and bolts of what this series has been about. We see some of the, like, how did Hulk get to this point where he was, his own spaceship? We get some backstory where, in very graphic detail about how he kind of ripped himself apart and started putting all these, like, electrical bits in him and everything. He goes to see Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange kind of tries to help him, Bruce Banner, kind of come to terms with Hulk. But the whole time, we still have this shadow of the Hulk that is looming out there, this Titan that looks like he's going to have the major throwdown with in the next issue. So it was a fun issue. I still feel like there was probably more to this story, but with Donny Cates leaving, Ryan Ottley was left with some of the footnotes to try to piece it together. But it was enough where we still have a fun time towards the end. So that is number 13. We also have our Alex Ross Timeless variant with the leader, forehead for days. His head kind of looks like a squash. We have this really nice Steve McNiven homage cover, but no one's ever seen a cover like that before. And we also have this 1 in 25. Oh, who is this? But a Peach Momoko cover that we are selling to our customers for $20.
All right, so I read House of Slaughter, issue number 13. This is the third part of The Butcher's Return, which has a lot to do with Jace and the House of Butcher, where he is originally from. And this is written by Tate Bromble with art by Antonio Fuso. It's still being directed in a way by Tynion and Deladera, but the direct creative teams who I like to bring up. And so in this, Jace's friend, the little kid Sonny, he got rescued by some of the people from the House of Butcher. And in this issue, they invite him to come on in, just stay for dinner. Just stay for dinner. He's been warned about them. He feels very leery about it. So what do you think? Audience, do you think that he is in danger? Do you think that they mean good things for him? Do you think they're just trying to recruit him? You'll get a better idea of that by the end of the issue. But I will say it looks like it might become a battle of between Jace and the House of Butcher, sort of a tug of war over Sonny. So that's what's going on in House of Slaughter 13. We have the Deladera variant. We have the 1 in 25 Luckert Virgin variant we're selling to our customers for $10. And then the 1 in 10 or 1 per store sketch variants for that Deladera one we're selling for $10.
And for my final one, we have Immoral X-Men number 2. So continuing that Sins of Sinister storyline, this one jumps ahead to 100 years in the future. First it's 10, now it's 100. I did not get to read this as deeply as I wanted. I feel like I need to read this about 3 times because I'm not smart enough for this storyline. I really got to kind of dissect it because you're dealing with a lot of new characters. Kind of like new future versions of sinisterized characters. And you have that Rasputin character that we saw way back in House and Powers of X.
Right.
Way back in the day, makes her return. So, just letting you know, this is a dense read. It seems like each issue of this is going to be kind of that way. I feel like it's going to have a really good payoff at the end. But I want to let you know that is out. We've got this really nice Todd Knock variant. You can kind of see it on the cover, kind of at the bottom. There's a very interesting version of Super Skrull in this that, I don't know. It's just, he's kind of went through an evolution. And then we also have the Asrar variant for that as well.
I mean, the comic has to be complex. Mr. Sinister, his plans are so complicated, he could get you to backstab yourself.
That is very true.
Just picture that.
And I will say there is a heavy Star Trek homage at the end of this that is kind of tongue-in-cheek, which I thought was pretty funny, but you'll have to read it to see it.
Okay, so now we're just going to mention the other comics that are out this week that we did not get around to reading. That includes things like Avengers War Across Time, issue number 3.
We have Bishop War College, number 2.
We have Captain America, Symbol of Truth, number 11, which has this Alex Ross variant with Red Skull on it, out this week.
We have Gold Goblin, number 5, speaking of goblins.
Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, number 4 is out.
And speaking of Star Trek number 5 and Defiant, number 1.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Armageddon game, issue number 6 is out.
We have the X-Cellent, number 1, where the Mike Allred Ecstatics story.
Batgirls, issue 16.
And that does feature the first appearance of a new girl bat. Instead of Man Bat, there is a new girl bat. We have Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries number 6.
Batman Incorporated, also at issue number 6.
Batman The Adventure Continues Season 3, new issue of that.
And Danger Street number 4 by Tom King is out.
Darkwing Duck number 3.
Frank Frazetta Death Dealer issue number 10.
Gunslinger Spawn number 18.
Image 30th Anniversary issue 11. That is the second to last issue.
Yep. And Walking Dead Deluxe number 59.
All right. Well, if you stuck with us this entire show, thank you very much. We hope we've done our job in telling you about all the new comics that are coming out this week and better explaining them, helping you know what to pick out at your comic store. Don't forget, you can head on over to our website, infinityflux.net, where you can either buy some of these comics or you can pre-order comics by just going to the one you want, clicking on it. You can subscribe to the whole series. You can just order individual issues. So that is, again, at infinityflux.net. So thank you very much. We'll be back on Friday where we go over all the latest comics available to order.
Yes.
So until then, have a great day, and we will see you on Friday, hopefully.